Hey folks, I'm Nick Hawks with Paleo Treats. This is the second in a four-part series on Paleo versus Keto. This one is going to be all about Paleo. The first one was a big overview, Paleo versus Keto, diet of ingredients versus diet of macros. This is a little bit deeper dive into Paleo, so you have a good understanding of it. The next one will be at Keto, about Keto. And the last one will be how to supercharge using Paleo and Keto together. For now, let's dive into what the Paleo diet is. A lot of times you hear what Paleo isn't. It's no gluten, no grain, no dairy. All right, those are great things, and that's definitely what it is not. But what is Paleo diet? Paleo is this idea that humans evolved to eat over 2 million years a certain way. That was foraging for food, maybe a couple days missing your meals, maybe missing a meal a day, and then always getting a varied, very seasonal diet. So sometimes you got stuff that was available in the winter. When it was summer, you got your summer stuff. In the shoulder seasons, you got that. And you're always moving around getting something different. You weren't getting a lot of meat. If you ever hunted meat, you know that animals they're pretty hard to track down and kill. Even with modern day weapons, with primitive weapons are even more difficult. So meat was more of a rare occasion that you got it, or definitely less often than we get it today. Lots and lots of fresh fruit, lots and lots of fresh food all the time. And then a minimal amount of fruit, except occasionally you get something to gorge on, but you weren't getting lots of fruit all the time. That's Paleo kind of in a nutshell, and that happened over the course of 2 million years of human evolution. It's only in the last, there's three big inflection points. In the last 10,000 years, with the advent of agriculture, we started to bring in a lot of grain into our diet. All right, we began to process food. We were pounding grain into flour, making bread. Gluten was getting added into our diet. We had a lot more stable source of both meat and animal products, so eggs and milk. So we're getting those a lot more. And then about 100 years ago, we started to get processed foods into our diet. So we started getting canned food and food in cardboard boxes, and sea rats in World War II. We're getting preservatives and stabilized in our diet. And then anywhere from 10 to 30 years ago, depending on where you lived, we started getting a lot of sugar into our diet. Sugar became a part of every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that was definitely not a part of what we were eating over that 2 million year course of evolution that we came through. So eating Paleo means that we kind of wind back the clock and go to what were we doing more than 10,000 years ago. And this is a part that sometimes is difficult for people to understand. They think, oh, Paleo is what my grandparents did or what my great-grandparents did. It's not. Paleo goes back many, many generations before we get back to that kind of 2 million year long period. So if you're thinking about grandparents, it's not your great or your great-great or your great-great-great or your great-great-great-great. It's your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great- up. There were no buildings, right? There was no vehicles, there's no internet, very few clothes, so we're much more robust and able to handle the heat and the cold. We slept outside, slept on the ground, we were in nature all the time, so it was actually a big lifestyle, which is the last part of this paleo thing I'll talk about at the end of this. So that means that with paleo and it being so different than what we experience now in the modern world, is that what we see here at Paleo Treats with people walking in and asking us for help and telling us how they're doing it, is we see three big misconceptions, three big mistakes that happen on the paleo diet. Number one is that paleo is meat heavy. Paleo is not meat heavy. Paleo is meat a couple times a week, okay, not for every meal, and basically just once a day. If you think about how often you got meat over the course of that 1.92 million years that we evolved, it wasn't very often. Okay? So it's not meat heavy. It's not, oh, I'm going to have a brontosaurus steak. First, that's dumb because humans and dinosaurs didn't coexist. But second, we just didn't get that much meat to eat. So our bodies are not set up to process tons of meat all the time, right? You're not supposed to have bacon and sausage for breakfast and then, chicken and whatever for lunch and then a huge steak dinner. That's way too much meat for most people. Now, the caveat to all of this stuff about, too much of this or you can't have gluten or you can never have that is that humans are very robust. We're tough species and we can eat almost anything. You can live on shoe leather if you have to. But if we're talking about optimizing our diet, if we're talking about optimizing the ingredients, which is where paleo is really helpful, we want to think about what did we eat over that course of 2 million years. So, number one, paleo, meat heavy, not true. Number two, talked about this a little bit, this is the number two mistake that people make, is they try and take their standard American diet or their standard modern diet and change it to a paleo diet. So they have paleo breakfast cereal with paleo milk and a paleo burrito and paleo pancakes and paleo waffles, all of that stuff. They try and make their old diet into paleo. And that's a recipe for disaster, right? That's not a recipe for health. Paleo is this idea that we skipped a couple meals a day for 2 million years. Humans were shaped and formed and built to skip meals, to not eat very often, to not eat every 20 minutes, certainly not to eat 3 meals a day on a consistent basis. So this idea of saying like, hey, what I used to eat in my modern diet is what I'm going to eat for paleo is a common mistake that we see, and people will say, oh, I'm not losing weight because you're eating 3 meals a day, you're eating too many calories, you're eating too often. You got to give your gut a chance to digest it, to rest a little bit, and then come back and get ready for the next meal. So that's the second mistake, is trying to make a direct translation from modern to paleo. And the third thing that we see is that paleo is just a diet, right? Paleo is a way of life. There's a whole bunch of other lifestyle modifications that you can, and I think that you should make if you want to be super healthy and look back and say, hey, this is how I evolved to live over 2 million years. I'm not going to change that just because humans have changed radically in the last 100 years. What are some of those lifestyle modifications? Well, we talked a little bit about this idea that's called intermittent fasting, but not eating as often, not getting 3 meals a day. You can have 2 meals a day. You can thrive on 1 meal a day, right? So thinking about how often you eat. The other thing to think about is what was the environment we were in, right? Right now, we spend a lot of time in buildings. I'm in a building right now. You got to make sure that you spend time outside in nature. We were born and bred and evolved to live in direct connection with nature. We also evolved to live in direct connection with many other people, all right? And those were face-to-face, flesh-to-flesh connections. So shaking hands, hugging, being, roughhousing with your buddies, hugging your friends, putting your arm around them, like being in a community and being physically with people is an important part of being human. It's an important part of being healthy. So time with people, time in nature, time outside of buildings for sure. Of course, the diet, making sure we get enough time to sleep so that we restore ourselves. Part of that comes from nature. Part of that comes from a lot of the mistakes people make is they just leave the lights on all the time. When you get home and the sun goes down, start shutting the lights off, make it a little bit darker. You evolved to sleep 8 to 10 hours a day, more in the winter, less in the summer. But try and respect that and honor that, and you'll see that you'll get these enormous health benefits. And then the last two pieces of paleo are this idea of the mind, that we evolved with this enormous, this energy-using mind. And we've got to use it to stay focused, to stay healthy, to stay sane. So you've got to have challenges for your mind. Part of that can come from meditation. So whether you use an app to do it and you do it in a high-tech way, or you just go in and you focus on your breathing, is just using your mind, shaping your mind, forming your mind, giving your mind a workout the same way you would give your body a workout. And then the last part is being creative. Humans have this amazing ability to visualize things that aren't there. We can figure out how we're going to make a guitar or a flute or a piece of art or an interpretation of movement, whatever those things are, all that creative stuff. That's an important part of who we are as humans, and that's an important part of human health. So paleo is this really big thing. It's not just, oh, I'm going to make paleo waffles instead of regular waffles. It's much more than a diet. It's how often we eat, how much we eat, and how we live. And that's kind of paleo, not quite in a nutshell, but a pretty brief version. We teach a much longer version called the Life Ascendant that Lee and I do. But for right now, let's stick with That's Paleo, and I'll catch you next time for the third video in this 4-part series on keto. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay in touch, watch what we're doing, and we'll keep you posted on everything paleo. Thanks so much for watching. Ciao, ciao.